the World Championship Series. We are here to continue the story as we take step by step to find out who is the Season 2 champion of 2015 here in the Premier League. I'm joined by Jeff In Control Robinson one more time. And over here to the right-hand side, you may recognize this guy, Canadian fans. It is Huck. Welcome to the casting desk. Or the analysis desk, I should say.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
You're looking very dapper over there.
Am I looking dapper?
No. No jacket, no tie, no dapper.
Oh.
They don't fit.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Can I look dapper now?
Yes, you
Thank
look
you.
great, In
Appreciate
Control.
that.
Thank you very
Everybody's
much for
dapper, everybody
I
wins.
think so.
joining us up here. We're moving forward with Group A. We have one final game remaining. It is going to be the winner's match. One player is going to move forward to the round of 8. As you can see here, the left side of the screen is the winner match, match 3. And it's going to be GunGFuBanDa, who just beat 4GG in a massive victory on the second stream. He goes up against Hydra, and match 4, of course, will be the lower bracket game played out tomorrow. Before we discuss this matchup, boys, let's talk a little bit about this German player. It's his first time up on this stage because he did play on the secondary stream over there. A massive moment for a player that's having his first season in the World Championship Series, and now he's about to go up against the Season 1 finalist, Jeff.
He's young. He's 17 years young. You have to be 16 to compete in WCS. That means he's been fomenting out there for a whole year, waiting to strike, and poor 4GG didn't see it coming. But
yeah.
I mean, it's just the kind of thing about this format is winning that series is huge, puts you in an awesome position, but you ain't done yet. He has to beat Hydra, no small task there, although fellow, not countryman, because he's German and Lilbo is French, but basically countryman. I believe they're the same.
Yeah.
Lilbo did beat Hydra, so, and I know a lot of these European players practice together and talk, so hopefully there's a little bit of information going back and forth.
Well, let's talk a little bit about GunGFuBanDa here. First season in the WCS, he said multiple times in the past that he feels no pressure at all. Everyone's not really expecting him, apart from you, to do well in this tournament. He comes up here, no fear, no doubt, and he's actually secretly very confident, Chris.
Yeah, maybe that's playing to his strength. Because no one expects anything from him, he doesn't have that pressure. You know, when you're playing someone that's so highly rated, you kind of, it just falls off. Where someone like 4GG, losing to him, he's probably kicking himself right now, thinking like, what am I doing? I was supposed to win this match. Even me, I didn't expect him to do too well. And
it was basically only me that knew.
It was only you, Jeff.
He was the only one that believed in him, but it's paying off now.
Hopefully you continue your predictions across the weekend, because we will track those. Before we continue our discussions, let's take a closer look at the German.
Being in Toronto, in between all of these players, I feel I have no pressure at all, because like it's their job and they have to win. It's their life. They need this money. I don't need this money at all, and so I don't have any pressure. And I think that because of that, I will calm down and feel confidence.
He went in, he knew he was the underdog, and I don't think he was thinking about losing that set. I think he was thinking about winning.
I was really nervous at the first games. My heartbeat was so fast, but at the time it goes longer, my heartbeat decreased, and I was very confident.
I think the German Protoss is going to do it over here, so the combo Archons being morphed in. He has to be careful though, he's really fighting so close to the violence of Alfie.
I will be a little bit nervous at Toronto, but I think if I just believe in myself, I can maybe do it.
Magical moments have happened in the past in the World Championship Series, and this is building to potentially be one of them if this young German player can take out Hydra, the Season 1 finalist. What do you think's going through his mind up there, Chris? I mean, big stage, big event. You've had the big events yourself in the past. What do you think?
It's really hard to say. I always got very nervous at events like this, especially in front of a Canadian crowd. You know, you kind of always want to do well because I'm from
Canada.
Here. Woo, Toronto, Canada. But for him, he seems very calm, cool, collected. I mean, he's doing really well, and then on top of that, he doesn't need the money.
I
gotta pay my bills, all right? That's why I'm here.
Never before has it been more clear he's 17. It's like, oh, young man, you wait like 3 more years when you'll always need the money. Like, that's so awesome, though.
Jeff, you mentioned at the very start of the day, you were correct in the prediction that you thought he'd do well. Why? Why did you pick him out?
in my kind of theory on Protoss is that in order to win a best-of series, you have to be this really interesting mix of all over the place. You need to bust out a really crazy timing.
Yeah.
You need to be able to proxy gate at the final game of a best-of-5, best-of-3. And then you need to rock a 3 Nexus build. You need to be able to go the distance. And GunGFuBanDa is that for me. He's not one-dimensional. He's not super, super cheesy. A lot of people disagree with me on that. He is cheesy, but he's willing to play the straight-up macro game as well. And it's also the young people, I gotta say, in StarCraft. The guy, and I mean, we made jokes about it, but it's actually true. The people that don't really have concerns are like, "This is awesome. I'm traveling. This is great," and that's the experience for them. They can really focus on the games. They get a little bit less nervous, and in a lot of cases, they actually play better. So he's got this mixture of, I'm not ready to call him a world champion yet, but who knows? At the end of this weekend, I might be the smartest person in the building. It's all about me. I'll accept it. It's a joke. It's not about me. It's a total joke.
Jeff, the Dark Horse story could come true here. It's time to bring out these 2 players, including Hydra, to the main stage. Chobra's going to bring them out.
Thank you very much, Sean. And we are here. We just got done talking about it. He's the youngest player this weekend, and he's here to make his debut count in the Premier League. It's going to be representing Planet Key Dynamics, GunGFuBanDa! And of course, the man we just saw here on the main stage, you heard him in the interview, I'm going to be the champion this season. Representing Root Gaming, it's Hydra! Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to find out our first player who moves on to the quarterfinals. Players, please shake hands and take your positions to go to match number 3.
Thank you very much, Chobra, once again. Excellent job out there in the crowd. Now it's time to get to the nitty-gritty stuff here in Control and Huck. These 2 players going head-to-head. You've talked about how GunGFuBanDa is a player to look out for. But backstage, Chris, I'm not sure if you're in the discussion. I think you were. There was a lot of people that counted you and the German out.
I was one of those people. I mean, we all were, to be honest. It's not expected. He hasn't had the results. He seems shaky. He's thrown a few games. But all in all, I mean, is not having pressure is a big sign. And now, all of a sudden, 4GG already lost. Hydra's looking at that. He's like, this guy isn't someone to mess with. Like, if he can beat 4GG, especially PvT, where 4GG has excelled, he's a scary opponent.
I think you can look at, you know, GunGFuBanDa's run in the round of 32. He beat Elfie, he beat Haas, but he's just beaten 4GG. And in a game that 4GG probably was thinking, all right, let's get this one over and get on that main stage to play a game. But unfortunately, she has to wait till tomorrow. This must be, you know, it's almost like he's just saying to himself, you know, this is actually going to happen. I am confident. I am beating the best players. And he's just beaten 4GG. We can take a closer look at these players and their stats in a moment here as they are ready to play for you. But continuing on this discussion, Hydra is looking at this guy. Is he really a threat to me? I'm a Season 1 finalist. Are you kidding me? I've already just dispatched a bunny. And here is the German. I mean,
there he goes.
What do you think Hydra's thinking?
You know, I would not overestimate. I mean, like, I don't think Hydra's sitting there sweating. I mean, look at how chill this guy is. We were talking about even before the first match, which is, in my opinion, the one where he's going to have the most butterflies. Bunny, on paper, was very fearsome TvZ, and Hydra kind of had his way with him. But here he is. He's chill. He's not a care in the world, and that's like what a big winner needs. I mean, we talk about his second place finishes and how that's kind of a monkey on his back, but this is the face, the calm, the demeanor of a guy who is poised for excellence. And 11-3 now.
Yeah, 11-3 with that victory over Bunny. You think he's worried at all, Chris?
No, I think he's pretty confident, especially in ZVP. It depends on the maps, of course, a lot of vetoes and stuff, whether he gets like a good gold-based map. But all in all, Hydra, now that he won his first match, I think he's confident, especially because this group is so hard. as Jeff said earlier, just winning that first match is very, very important.
Well, here is the 17-year-old GunGFuBanDa traveling all the way over from Germany. I know a lot of you in Europe are up late watching this to see how well he can do, but he continues to impress. Another victory under his belt, and these stats are slowly building up to look very, very impressive. His round of 32 was an excellent performance. He managed to squeeze out of that group in second place, and here he is today, live in Toronto, Canada, to give it a shot at what every pro player wants. Jeff, you believe he's going to win again against Hydra? 4GG and Hydra? Because that, if you look at it on paper, is absolutely remarkable if he's able to take down both.
I think right now, especially kind of going again to the meta game, kind of the overall way things are playing out, European Protosses have a lot of confidence in the PvZ matchup. Of course, they're not playing against Hydra day in and day out, who is a top-tier Zerg, but they have a lot of confidence. They execute these timing attacks, which is looking for a specific window of opportunity to hit a very sharp timing. And they also are able to play these maps fairly well. So I'm going to be watching closely. I do think, I mean, let's be honest, like we've heard the term, a betting person.
Yeah.
If I was a betting person, I would say Hydra. But I do think GunGFuBanDa has the correct mixture to be a real serious threat.
All right, well, let's start to think about this matchup and how it's going to take place. We'll get the maps very shortly underway here, but stylistically, GunGFuBanDa against Hydra, how does this play out, you think, or something we should be looking for when this match goes up?
I think Hydra is probably going to stick to like Roach Hydra or some kind of Roach variation, maybe Burrowed Roaches depending on the maps.
And what's the best way to deal with that?
Oof, like a lot of observers choking off, a lot of building placement things, making sure that everything's just locked down. As far as like immortal compositions will go really well for him. It's more about just playing solid, but at the same time, as Jeff mentioned, is that he has so many tricks up his sleeve. Like GunGFuBanDa can play so many styles where I look at Hydra and I think, you know what, this guy probably thinks he's better, so he's already a safe, you know, macro player. Now he's just gonna, you know, play towards that even more because he's playing against someone that's tricky and he thinks he's better and he's already suited to that style. So he's just gonna play super safe, super reserved, unless he knows something. I don't know how much these guys studied each other, but I imagine, you know, being as big as this is, they've done some research.
I mean, on the point of studying each other, we know that Korean players, they talk a lot about how they're gonna like withstand the tide of foreigner players. Jaedong just barely lived past the Proxy 2 gate. I think it was a weekend or two ago from GunGFuBanDa, which is his only loss in WCS so far. And I wonder if in Hydra's kind of in his mind as he's developing builds here for each map, is he like, do I have to scout? Do I have to do 15 spawning pool every time? Because is this guy going to Proxy 2 gate me? And I think, I mean, I don't want to overstep, you know, the thinking of this, but maybe that's somewhere in his mind. It's going to be kind of scary.
Well, as a Protoss player, you've got 2 Terrans in your group and a Zerg. How do you actually, if you're him, how would you have prepared for this, knowing that that was the play?
I mean, I generally would play a decent amount of ladder games, and then on top of that, you know, like he said, maybe he has some French comrades that he can practice with.
Well, here are the maps as well, Chris. Coda, Echo, Vani Research Station. Before we talk about Coda, what really stands out about those 3 maps?
I would say Vani for sure. I mean, that's the map, of course, that he did double proxy gate against Jaedong.
Yeah.
So we might see a lot of trickery on that map, and I'm sure Hydra's going to be sweating a little bit, maybe, you know, doing some unusual scouting patterns with his overlords.
Okay, so here's Coda. Talk to us about Coda and how this plays up. It's one of the most popular maps, along with Echo, in the WCS system. What can we expect from both sides, and what are the key points to point out that we have to look for in this match?
In general, PvZ, it's very standard. Protoss is generally going to try to take that quick third base right at 12 or 6 o'clock on the map.
Yeah.
And just normal macro, there's a lot of rocks to be, you know, destroyed and moved into position. In general, Zerg's going to try to choke out the Protoss player, you know, from their second base to their third base and create concaves. That's the most important part if they're going a Roach or Hydra army.
So diving right in between the second and third base, most important part to look for.
Setting up and just having like a nice line and then slowly trying to pick off units as they rally down.
Real subtle point that Huck kind of dropped there that I really like is something too. Hydra, much to his name, and I'm not making a pun here, it's actually true, he'll skip Roaches a lot of times, and he'll go straight Hydra, which in the meta right now is really strong, because a lot of Protoss players are either doing kind of immortal-based compositions or playing Stalker Sentry, so it can be very tough.
All right, gonna have to cut you off here, Jeff, as the game is ready and loaded. Toronto, Canada, hope you're ready for this one. Let's head over to the casting team. It's your favorite, Roddy and Nate.
Thank you very much, Apollo and the boys. Roddy, it's time for some sweet PvZ action. Already a very interesting matchup to be going into, looking at a winner's match. GunGFuBanDa versus Hydra.
I mean, we just casted this series before, and his victory was not even undeserved. He played better in the series than he did against 4GG, or than 4GG in that series, and he just deserved it. Even the game he lost, he had a horrendous start, and he was almost able to come back in that game as well. He's going to have to do the same thing all over again, but perhaps even better, as he's going up against one of the scariest Zergs in the world, Nate.
That's right. Can he make another upset in the bottom right of Coda from Planet Key Dynamics, GunGFuBanDa? Up against one of the titans of WCS Season 1, a favorite to make it to BlizzCon this year. Representing Root Gaming, he is Hydra!
And I think the boys at the analysis desk made a lot of very cool, interesting points. Of course, if you're Hydra, you take a look at those games that GunGFuBanDa played in his group, as he did play against Jaedong. And what Jeff said, you know, does that mean that he's going to proxy me as well if you're Hydra? You know, are you going to go 15 pool, or will you be able to still play it? You know what? Even if you try to proxy me, I think I could still deal with it as long as it's just a single hatchery and whatnot. Instead, we see, you know, it's actually complete opposite so far, as our Protoss player is going Nexus first, no scout. I too like to live dangerously, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that these players match up, and I think an interesting point when they talked about the preparation is GunGFuBanDa in this group is the underdog. If Hydra goes into the series against Bunny with confidence, how much do you really prepare for someone like GunGFuBanDa? If you're thinking about a deciding or winner's match, you're most likely preparing for one of the two Terrans. Studying versus Protoss, let alone GunGFuBanDa, I feel, was probably one of the least things that any player in this group did.
And I mean, that's a great point, because even if you're Hydra, you're not just preparing for your round of 16. You're looking at all 15 players, you know, other than yourself. You're like, okay, who are the top dogs over here? And the majority of them would have probably not been Protoss for Hydra. He looks at Paul, 4GG, you know, maybe Jaedong as well. And of course, there is Stardust, but he probably hasn't even practiced a whole lot ZVP. But then again, his mechanics are so solid. He's just such a good player all around. And his timings there, if Hydra makes, no pun intended, a Hydra timing, then it is going to be extremely powerful. It's going to hit very hard. And it's one of these things, even if you play Protoss and you know it's coming, it's still so hard to deal with.
Yeah, and you make a really good point by bringing up just looking at all the players, because Hydra's looking to make that deep run again this season, looking to make it to the finals. If he gets close and nice and up there, if he makes it to the finals again, if he wins it like he says he can this season, that really puts him in a very cemented spot for trying to lock down that BlizzCon title to actually get into the WCS Global Finals later this year. Whereas for GunGFuBanDa, he's taking it every single match at a time because he's not really supposed to get too far.
He hasn't. GunGFuBanDa doesn't have to worry about BlizzCon. Perhaps he's a little bit worried about, like, hey, whenever people talk about the best Protoss players in Europe, why do they always mention Hearthstone, Lilbao, Showtime? Why not me? You know, I'm supposed to be one of them. And, well, one quarterfinal appearance at the season finals, and you will always be mentioned in that list, Nate. There are 6 Zerglings making their way across the map. Kind of interesting to see what Hydra's going to do with this. Speed is not going to be done anytime soon. I think most of these links will have died, but if he can get 1 or 2 probes over here, that's already very nice if you're Hydra.
Yeah, not too shabby. And at the very least, it also gives Hydra access to information on anything that's inside of GunGFuBanDa's base. He gets a good look at everything. He sees the sentry follow-up from this, and also at the same time takes that third base. Hydra can basically say to himself, I don't have too much to worry about just yet.
Look at him buying time with these links, Nate. They're still slow links, but within 5 seconds, they won't be that slow anymore. And it's actually going to be quite annoying. As sentries are very slow, they won't be able to catch these links. Even if you have 2 sentries, you're going to have a hard time catching up. So if Hydra is maybe able to get 1 or 2 more additional probes, that would be great news for him. Maybe a force field on the ramp to keep these links in the main base. He's not going to waste energy.
Yeah, and if you were able to bait out force fields from either of those sentries, then you're also limiting the possibility for Phoenix Scouts later on too.
Yeah, but he spots the Forge over there, and that's always a little bit of a tell. It's like, all right, I probably don't have to worry about a crazy 6 or 7 gate now. He's going to run into the natural. Once again, you have to pull a couple probes, and even though this doesn't look major, I can guarantee you, if you play Protoss and you're forced to pull your workers off your mineral line 4 times in a 6-minute game, even if it's just for 5 seconds, that kind of stuff bothers you, Nate.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that can slowly build into being an advantage for Hydra in a series like this, especially considering, you know, he's the guy that's favored. He's going to be looking to play as solidly as he can. He's even getting some extra links on the map just to hold that pressure as much as possible.
Yeah, that was one very happy little Zergling that survived way longer than it perhaps should have in the main base. First hallucinated Phoenix Scout is going to make his way across the map. Hydra made a few more links. He's playing this very passive, very defensive so far. He's going to try to cancel that Nexus, but I'm not sure if he has the right amount of links. He actually has 24, then I guess there are still quite a few more on the way. 24 links should be enough. The pylon isn't ready yet at this third base. This is a really big move, because if he doesn't get the Nexus, then he wasted a lot of potential larva.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been focusing on building workers this whole time. The sentries come out, they force field themselves into a nice little defensive donut position, and that prevents those links from actually getting them. So you're going to move in right now on top of the Nexus. The left side is open enough, but he actually pushes him back.
It lives. The Nexus lives, and that is so massive. As a Protoss player in this phase in the game, the links may try one more time, but now with the pylon finishing up, more sentries could have been wiped in. This is actually starting to look quite okay for a German Protoss.
That calm, collected mentality that the analysis desk was talking about is really starting to show here. GunGFuBanDa, you can panic in these scenarios and just cancel that Nexus instantly or miss one of your force fields, but he doesn't really seem to be too shaken up in this series yet.
Yeah, there we do see the class of Hydra as well, not just throwing away those links, saving them, still being annoying, picking up an additional probe. Because, even if you're GunGFuBanDa right now, and you're of course extremely happy to see that your opponent A made a lot of Zerglings and B didn't kill your Nexus or forced the cancel, he's still very occupied in dealing with this. So I do have the feeling that his Twilight is a little bit later than he would have liked to have it. The robotics facility is quicker than with most Blink Stalker builds, but instead he's going to open up with a Warp Prism while we see the Spire going down on the other side of the map. This is not your conventional ZVT over here on Coda. This is playing out a little different than I expected it to play out.
Yeah, I mean, what are you expecting to see from this? Is it going to be a Mutalisk-based play, or?
I mean, if it's Roach Corruptor, I'll be very surprised, Nick.
All right, had to ask. +2 on the way with Blink for GunGFuBanDa. So he's moving into what's pretty popular for PvZ, a very, very heavy gateway possible base force. He's getting the robotics bay as well, so he can lock down any area of effect damage from Colossi to help deal with something like a massive Roaches, or especially Zerglings.
I mean, there is a hallucinated Phoenix Scout right now moving towards the main base, and it's actually extremely important to notice whether or not he sees the Spire. He doesn't spot it yet with his first scout. He still has plenty of energy on some of his other sentries, and of course he's going to probably throw a couple of Zealots into the main base of Hydra as well. So then he should be able to see the Spire, because if you see it the moment I think the GunGFuBanDa sees it, he just throws up a bunch of cannons, then he runs across the map, and there is a good chance he can win.
Yeah, he's really in a position where there's a lot of opportunities available. The cannon in third base going to help actually push these Roaches away and prevent them from dealing cataclysmic amounts of damage, and even the pylon locking them in. So GunGFuBanDa will be able to clean up this force in his third. There's another wave. There's something actually coming right outside between that natural and that third. But the Warp Prism is also moving in a mostly undefended base.
I mean, this is the moment where if I'm a Protoss player, I start getting suspicious. Why, you may ask? Well, the moment you're having an easy time against Roaches and the Hydras are not out yet, as a Protoss, you're never supposed to easily hold your base. So now you kind of know something weird is going on. There are Zealots being walked into the main base, and this is the first time that GunGFuBanDa is going to spot these Mutalisks. And I'm very curious to see how he's going to deal with it. But there you go, he's already marching across the map. Because right now, if they fight army against army, the army of the Protoss is a lot stronger. He could use the Warp Prism as well to reinforce, but the Warp Prism does get picked off. He throws down a Stargate instead. Some Protoss players would say, just defend with cannons and Stalkers. I kind of always like the Stargate against Mutalisk play.
Yeah, he's keeping open the option to at least move into Phoenix if that Mutalisk count does get too high later on. The Mutas come in and snipe one of the sentries, not bad, preventing a couple possible Guardian Shields and Force Fields, but he's got a decent amount of energy on the sentries that he does have, but at the same time, we do have that transition into Hydralisks and Hive coming in for Hydra.
Are there Hydralisks still on the way?
He's got the Hydra Den. He's getting the upgrade for range and +2, so he's got the options.
Ooh, GunGFuBanDa's army is actually quite far out of position now. He has no idea about this army running across the map, but he did leave a couple of units behind. With a Colossus, he should be okay against the Zerglings, even though they will try to jump on top of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a pretty awkward position to say the least. The Mutants come in and try to help damage this. He blinks back into his base once again, but GunGFuBanDa's army is still out on the map, and the Mutalisks, the Roaches, come in, kill the Colossus. They've entered the natural Photon Cannon, not going to last much longer, and still has not yet recalled, just now coming back into that natural, but already taking some pretty heavy hits.
Yep, a couple of sentries getting picked off as well by those roaches. There are roaches in the main base as well. Hydra doing a phenomenal job in splitting up this army. And not, of course, not just picking off probes. He also got that Colossus. He's forcing everything to run around. They even escaped with a bunch of roaches as well. Excellent counterattack by Hydra, because if he would have been forced to fight that army straight up, he would have had a very, very rough time. And during all this, Nate, he did save his hatchery as well on the right top side of the map, took care of the Immortal and a couple of Zealots that were left behind. Suddenly things are starting to look a little bit better for Hydra. That was a brilliant counterattack, because if he doesn't counter there, I think it's going to be a very difficult game for him.
Yeah, and GunGFuBanDa took a long way around to hit that base. So GunGFuBanDa, you know, it seemed like probably, you know, was it overconfidence, do you think, to say that he could actually go that far around rather than either attacking directly and going home?
I just did not think he expected a counterattack there by Hydra. I think he expected Hydra to try to defend that fort base instead. But Hydra, the smart player that he is, he could have perhaps tried to do that, but he was facing 7, 8, 9 sentries. They were almost all full of energy. You're talking about a ridiculous amount of force fields by then. So Hydra just did the smart thing. He did the Zergy thing, counterattacking with a faster mobile army. And also, you know, I think GunGFuBanDa was a little bit indecisive about whether or not he should have recalled. At first, I think he's like, I think I got enough here. I got a cannon, a Colossus, and then suddenly things spiraled out of control real quick. And he's like, oh damn, shoot, like I got a recall right now. And then it was already a little bit too late. There are Vipers on the map as well, so the Mothership Core could get abducted. And if this one Colossus gets abducted, this Protoss army, Nate, is not that scary at all.
Yeah, I mean, the supply, just looking at the way that he set up Hydra, doubling him in army supply overall. GunGFuBanDa needs to make some big plays. He has the Templar Archives, but despite the fact that he's going to go for Storm, which can be useful against Roach Hydra, he still now has to deal with, as we can see, a Greater Spire. Broodlords are on the way.
Man, Hydra's macro is just ridiculous. He's maxed out during all this. He's still on 4 bases. That Greater Spire, like you mentioned, Nate, is on the way. I think he has just as a single Viper, correct? But there's also just there are 2 Colossus actually on the map, and Colossus number 3 is about to get out. So 1 Viper is a little bit low. Normally you'd like more, especially because we do have high Templars out on the map. And 1 feedback is an instant kill on the Viper. And this Roach Hydra army is going to have a very difficult time, no matter if it's 50 supply bigger or not. Without Vipers, without Abducts, you're going to have a very difficult time fighting against Colossus.
Yeah, he's going to try to move in now and go to the natural to force GunGFuBanDa to leave his defensive posture. The Photon Overcharge is activated. He time warps some of the Hydras on the ramp, but he's going to move down against mostly Roaches. There's the Blinding Cloud trying to push the gateway units back, but the Colossi can still fire from afar. There's the last couple of force fields. He's actually closed a lot of Hydra's army in this position.
Yeah, I think this is so far excellent hold position. Again, we saw that in his series as well. That Nexus, Nate, is going to go down though in the natural. So Hydra did get something for all those units that he sacrificed. But boy, oh boy, did he lose a lot of Hydras and Roaches over there.
Yeah, it's wild because GunGFuBanDa actually finished his 4th base during all of this while counterattacking in the northeast, cleans up everything in his main base. And if he can get those probes to the southwest, if he would have been able to pick this hatchery off, that would have been so good.
Yeah, he doesn't get the hatchery, but still, that was a really great hold. If we take a look at the units lost resource tab now, we can see that Hydra has clearly lost more than GunGFuBanDa. Of course, he has been mining more as well, but still, I don't think that was the most brilliant attack. But the follow-up, Nate, that's going to be the real scary thing. Stalkers can deal with Broodlords, but you know, things have to go really your way. You need excellent position, you need a couple of great storms and whatnot. Or sometimes you can somehow magically hit right before the Broodlords are ready. If he forward blinks right now, Nate, no, it would be risky. Does he do it?
He's going to go for it. He gets 1 Broodlord, cancels 2, going for 3s. There's still 4 remaining on top of this army. The Hydras are going to push in. He does have the Blinding Cloud available, abducts one of the Colossus forward, and these Colossi have so much damage potential. Hits a big storm on the Hydras to the right. The Broodlords are actually starting to move into the storms as well. He's getting everything that he needs, but he still has to handle with the Broodlords.
He lands a feedback as well, so no more abducts. That 1 Colossus that got abducted will probably go down. The Broodlords are pushing it back, but the further he goes out, the Broodlords are going to have a really hard time retreating, and actually GunGFuBanDa can reinforce his army because he has a pylon over there on the low ground with another forward blink. Hydra should back off them, and those Broodlords are so exposed.
Yeah, GunGFuBanDa actually opened up a really big opportunity there, and you said it perfectly. The Roach Hydra just moves so much faster than the Broodlords that he can't actually chase him, especially in that position where he's just moving away from where the production is.
That got extremely scary there for Hydra for a split second. GunGFuBanDa not hesitating, going for that forward blink immediately, and Blink Stalkers, like I said, they can deal with Broodlords, but it all comes down to engagement. And if you fight against 7, 8, 9 Broodlords in a defensive position, it's almost impossible. However, if you can blink before the fight starts, and instead of 7 Broodlords, you're fighting against 4, well, solidly, your Stalkers are going to have a much better time.
Yeah, I mean, he sees that the Broodlords aren't in too good of a position just yet. They're coming in from the north side with the Zanaga Watchtower. He knows how far away they are. And at this point, I mean, he's just got to try to fight this Roach Hydra as much as he can without the Broodlords being apart. There's one good Abducto, grabs 2 Colossi now. And with a lot of the area of effect removed from this army, the Roach Hydra can start this battle on its own again.
GunGFuBanDa just doesn't have any gas anymore. He's wiping in a lot of Stalkers. He's going for a flipping as well. That is a money storm, though. That you know, went through all 2 seconds, 4 ticks of 20 damage on all those units. So it did quite a bit of damage. Dark Shrine is going down. You could say indeed that he is a little bit behind, just because he's low on gas. You know, if he would get time right now, he could get, you know, a couple Tempest out. That is a very interesting blink coming from a side that I don't think Hydra expected him to come from.
Yeah, going for a pretty interesting flank, to say the least. The Broodlords are still in a position where it's very difficult to blink under them, especially with how many Roaches are adjacent to that spot. And he still has units inside of that natural expansion just continuing to be a pester. He's lost 25 probes in the mix of all of this.
Yeah, there are a couple of Roaches were in the natural doing a really good job. And now this Stalker army is just having a very difficult time fighting against the Roaches and Hydras at the same time. There are still Vipers around as well. They have already abducted the majority of the Colossus that were alive. There are 16 more Hydralisk on the way. So even if GunGFuBanDa finally gets an answer to these Broodlords, then he has to worry about this ridiculous Hydra force again, and he just doesn't really have the gas to warp in a lot of High Templars or keep on producing Colossus. I think he may have even lost his robotics facility. No, he still has that one, but still, he's just so low on gas.
I mean, the Stalkers finally get up close and personal with the rest of these Broodlords, but then the Hydras are able to do their dirty work, and as the most of this army has been picked off, Hydra still finds himself close to max out. He still has all of his 4 bases fully mining, and he's got a lot of army supply left over, a lot of production moving across the map.
Yeah, I'm talking about 96 army supply right now against 21. GunGFuBanDa has lost a lot of workers, has lost his natural, and once again it's just extremely low on gas. And with just Stalkers, most likely you're not going to cut it anymore. One more Colossus will get abducted, and it seems like Hydra will be able to close out game number 1 over here on Coda, but he had to work very hard for it, Nate.
I mean, he focused down a couple of the Overseers in this position, but I don't think a handful of Dark Templar would quite do the trick. Hydra immediately realized, like, okay, maybe let's get a couple more Overseers. Let's just make sure we don't lose to Dark Templar, because that's pretty much the only play you have left in your book.
Every Zerg has been there at least once, Nate.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got this game, right? Nothing can go wrong anymore. And then you see DT's like, I still think I can deal with it. And then you lose your 4th base and suddenly you realize you're broke. And then you lose your Overseer one more time. And then you're just like, oh, Protoss, what a beautiful race.
He's going to have one final last-ditch effort to try and defend this base, but those Templars do not even have energy for storms. And GunGFuBanDa, what can he do to stop this army? Not much.
I'm afraid there's nothing, Nate. Not even the biggest miracle storms. If he would somehow get enough storms out, can probably deal with this army. There's a ridiculous amount of DPS. You need Colossus to deal with that amount of Hydras, or you just need a lot of Blink Stalkers and a lot of storms. But GunGFuBanDa has neither. Hydra has just played a phenomenal game with a lot of very smart tech switches, but I still want to give credit where credit is due as well. And GunGFuBanDa made this game very close, and I would even say he was in an extremely winnable position in the mid phase. If he would have handled that big counterattack a little bit better, this could have all gone different, Nate.
Yeah, but as Hydra pushes into this 3rd base, clinching the rest of this game, reminding us all with this GG that he is the player that a lot of people are looking to go very far in this tournament. Now 1 map win away from moving on to the round of 8.
Yeah, but once again, he had to work very hard for it. And Coda, I wouldn't say it's a bad map for Protoss, but I also don't think it's the best one. I'm not sure what the other 2 maps are. We're going to take a look at it afterwards. But, you know, I think GunGFuBanDa played a pretty good game once more. You know, he's going up against one of the absolute top dogs within WCS Season 2, the runner-up of WCS Season 1. And this very young German Protoss is holding its ground. And once more, in my opinion, was in a winnable position when it was in the mid-game of this, in the mid-phase of the previous game.
I mean, things got really, really dicey when that big attack came into the natural, and he made the recall. He actually had that 4th base finishing up, even though the natural was destroyed. So perhaps Hydra didn't realize, like, okay, actually, there's quite a bit more income to make this big counterattack. But that was right when the Broodlord showed up. And I mean, if he's able to just snipe even just 1 more of them with that big blink forward that he made, No, that's
Yeah.
the whole game could have been completely turned on its head.
That as well. And let's not forget about that Immortal and the few Zealots he left behind when he went for that recall. If those, units take care of that hatchery on the right top side of the map, there is a chance that maybe it's a little bit of more of an even game as well. And later on in the game as well, GunGFuBanDa went for that hatchery again. There were a couple of Zealots going to town on it. Last moment, a couple of Hydras popped, took care of those Zealots. But, there were multiple phases in this game where if a German Protoss would have been a little bit more fortunate, just had a tiny bit more Lady Luck on his side, maybe even with the scouting as well, things could have gone the other way. But of course, Hydra is still playing a very smart CVP. A lot of Zergs out there are struggling with Protoss, and I still feel that if there is one small advantage that Zerg has over Protoss, is that it still has the ability to tech switch a lot quicker than Protoss is able to tech switch, and Hydra did that very well, but he's gonna have to play, more solid than that most likely in game number 2, because there are only so many tricks you can go for as a Zerg before the Protoss player figures you out.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting position. One of the biggest matches that GunGFuBanDa will ever be playing, or at least has ever played in his career, and now down 0-1 against Hydra. Really, if he's got anything left interesting to show us, now is the time to bust it out. We're loaded in, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 of this best of 3. In the top left position, the red Protoss player representing Planet Key Dynamics, he's GunGFuBanDa.
And on the right bottom side of Echo, we have the runner-up of WCS Season 1. He's representing Root Gaming. Give it up for Hydra. Hydra always looks so calm and collected, Nate. It doesn't really matter whether he's playing the round of 32, round of 16, if it's an online show match or whatever. He's always just same posture. He looks around. He's so relaxed. Just last week we had a couple of show matches and he was playing against Snoot. So I was like, hey, you want to do some games on the American server and some games on the European server? And Hydra was like, no, everything on Europe is like, bro, you're living on the West Coast. Like, you have a pretty high ping. He's like, no, everything on Europe is fine. Like, Hydra, nothing really phases him. He's so calm.
Yeah, and when you come into a tournament like this, it's important to keep nerves out of the picture. He's expected to go very far. Hydra expects himself to be able to reach the global finals, and this is, to him, this is more of a stepping stone than anything else. Like, hey, well, I have to get through the round of 16, and then that's when I'm going to start playing some of the bigger dogs that I would probably have to worry about eliminating me. And I mean, to be honest, he might have even been a bit more worried if he had to play against 4GG, for example.
We're talking Hydra up here a lot, and of course he's been a monster. He's been around for a long time. He was even a successful Brood War player, but this is by far and away the most successful StarCraft II year that Hydra has ever had. In the previous years, he's grinding away at Pro League, getting a couple of big victories here and there, but only this year, Nate, he's been starting traveling around. He has collected 3 second places already, 2 at the Gfinities, and of course 1 in WCS Season 1. But last year he didn't have any of that, so even though we're starting to get used to seeing Hydra make runs like this, this is still kind of new for him as well. It's not like he's the guy that has been doing this since 2010 or 2011,
That's true. He's definitely a part of a new wave that we're really seeing of these guys being able to compete outside of the Korean scene a lot more. And you like new players like Parting that have been able to compete a lot in these non-Korean tournaments, and it's very exciting because it brings a whole new flavor of what you're really anticipating. And for someone like GunGFuBanDa, it's scary.
GunGFuBanDa opened up in the most greedy economic way on the first map in Coda, which was Nexus first on the low ground, no scout into a gateway. Like, it doesn't really get much more greedy than that as a Protoss player. That's a build that, it's been around for more than a year now, and you see Protoss players bust it out quite often, but it's very susceptible against certain early game Zergling all-ins. It's not something you can do 3 games in a row, because then a Zerg player will just open up with a lot of links early on with quick speed, whatever, and you're going to have a very, very difficult time dealing with it. So this time it's a little less economic, but because of this opening he has a quicker warp gate, which means quicker access to warp gate technology, and there is a good chance that he's going to be able to apply some mid-game pressure a lot stronger than he was in the previous games. Then again though, Hydra plays it very safe. I want to say opens up with Zergling speed once more.
Yeah, this is
but it's different,
unusual. A very quick burrow from Hydra.
We saw this against Liubao in the round of 32. Hydra has used this build before. I'm sure that GunGFuBanDa has studied those games. Now, of course, if people wonder, like, burrow that quick, like, what are you going to do with it? The best thing you can do as a Protoss or as a Zerg player is just to burrow one Zergling at the potential third base of the Protoss. Protoss players in this day and age, like, oh my god, this is not good for Hydra, by the way, and I will explain soon why, but Protoss players in this day and age often delay their robotics facility a little bit, which is often, their main source of detection. and then try to go up to 3 bases very quickly, and then the moment you try to drop down your Nexus, you're like, damn it, I can't oh my god, he went burrow. It's like, oh, now I have to wait until I have detection or warp in a pylon. It takes forever. However, GunGFuBanDa has 2 gateways down his ramp, but he has 1 more additional gateway going down in his main base. 4 gateway pressure against a Zerg player that doesn't have Zergling speed, doesn't have a Roach Warren. This actually could be devastating for Hydra. This could get very, very, very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, what's the focus here? He has to get the pylon up, right? He has one building now. It looks like in the south center position of the map.
Yep, and
Is
Hydra's
this close enough?
I mean, he can always get another one. I mean, of course, GunGFuBanDa doesn't know what we know. If he would have the information that we have as an observer, he will start warping in Stalkers right now, and he will start kiting slow Zerglings for days, and he's going to have the time of his life. He will keep Hydra on 2 bases. He doesn't know, he doesn't have the information that we have. So he's transitioning a little bit behind this, warping in a robotics facility, getting his additional assimilators. Normally the correct play, if you have the information once again that we have, it's not the correct play, because he could have just gone all out with Stalkers and Zealots and at least cancel that 3rd base, maybe even win the game.
Yeah, so he had an opportunity, but not entirely, you know, in a situation like this, you're on such a big stage, taking a risk like that's pretty crazy, and the Zergling with its dying breath, not able to grab that pylon.
4 HP, Nate.
1 hit would have done it.
Yes.
Just one more little nibble.
Nibbling away at those pylons, as Kolaris would say.
Yeah, very close. But now the layer is done. Now we have road speed coming in. Now we have the potential to get those ranged upgrades. And the only thing, I guess, that kind of works out when you look at the way that GunGFuBanDa is set up, at least, is that he can get an observer before he takes a 3rd.
Yeah, he has a much quicker robotics facility, but I'm starting to wonder, Nate, does he even want to go up to 3 bases, though? Since he's already getting Immortals, he's chrono boosting them out. I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a bunch more gateways going down, and we're just going to see a very old school traditional Immortal Sentry all in, which has fallen out of fashion a little bit, but I would say if it's still good on one map, it could very well be Echo. Maybe Expedition lost, and the reason, of course, why is because it's a smaller map with a lot of choke points. Good micro, but oh my god, he's saving the Queen as well. Cute place.
Yeah, very nice moves to not lose those, at least the most important key unit there, that Queen, for the transfuse energy that it'll be able to save up for whatever follow-up may come. Now, GunGFuBanDa starts up a Forge, and I have to ask him, how does this fit into a potential aggressive play?
Probably not then. No. So I was wrong, Nate. He's still building workers as well, so he's going up to 47 workers, but this seems like a kind of a late 3rd base. He doesn't have his observer out yet either, so this is the moment where you click on your probe and you're like, Nexus, and you're like, let's try it again. I must have misclicked. Nexus. And it's like, nope. Nope. No. It's not me. Now I have to wait for my observer. So he will be able to take care of that Zergling. This is a great scout for Hydra as well, because now he kind of knows what he's up against. It's an interesting...
Well, that gets annoying, because he can split these roaches off, and with the supply block that GunGFuBanDa is currently experiencing, any follow-up observers would be delayed, so it's going to be a little bit annoying. He has to move that observer around between both bases to actually kill these roaches if they burrow.
Yeah, extremely frustrating, actually. I've been in this situation many, many times myself, and it's just like every single time there is still one burrowed roach somewhere that you didn't kill off in time. Like, look at Hydra, he's splitting up his roaches as far away as possibly as he can. Look at GunGFuBanDa, he starts mining a lot of probes, you know, or put a lot of probes on his assimilator. This is just frustrating as a Protoss, because you know you will be able to clean this up eventually, but you lose so much precious mining time. Your attack is not developing in the way that you want it to. This is just not a very bright scenario.
It's very distracting, and Hydra is being able to just build everything up. You know, for Hydra, it's a lot about the process here, moving forward, not taking any absurd chances. He's making sure to play his A game, his very straight up game, moving into roaches, Hydras, getting the infestation pit, 2nd evolution chamber. So he'll be able to get ready to move back into that Viper tech that we saw in the last game. He's not taking too many chances.
And I mean, a lot of force fields have been burned up over there as well. So, you know, the follow-up push that GunGFuBanDa is going to try to make over here, which is not, you know, necessarily a game-winning move. He doesn't want to win the game with this, even though he stopped producing workers for a while, or maybe he lost a couple. It's just not as intimidating as it was before, Nathan, because he burned a lot of his force fields already. So, you know, Hydra is probably looking at this. He's like, well, on creep with all the Hydras that I got, I think I'm going to be fine over here, mate. Like, you don't really have a whole lot to buffer for your Immortals either. Your sentries are extremely weak. You're going to have to drop a couple of very defensive force fields here, and maybe eventually even recall out, or just, you know, run back to your side of the map, because other than that, that army of GunGFuBanDa is not that intimidating. He has to be very careful. If the Mothership Core gets sniped over here, he needs to recall very, very quickly.
He recalls very quickly. Okay, so he does, he gets through most of the shields on that Mothership Core, but he does actually make it out. Could have gotten ugly very quickly there otherwise. +2 is on the way with Blink. That Templar Archives we're seeing again. I mean, he's been able to get that in a good enough timing in at least, you know, both of these games so far to try to deal with the Vipers. But you won't have, well, I guess he's going to go straight for Storm, but still having it ready to stop this army is not going to be an option.
His 5th and 6th Assimilator are a little bit late though, and you really need that if you want to go up to Storms as well. Now Echo is a map where you can drop good defensive force fields, and that's so far what we are seeing over here. Excellent display of, you know, force fields being used over there. 4 or 5 force fields going down, getting 4 or 5 roaches for free. That's a great trade. But the Hydras are the real threat, and as long as you don't have Blink Stalkers with +2, or you don't have Storm, it's going to be very hard to deal with a high number of Sentry or Hydras, excuse me. Because even when you force field them in, their DPS is so high that even when your force fields are good, you're still going to end up losing a bunch of Protoss units.
Yep, and now he's starting to step up this ramp once again, using the force fields to block spacing. And, you know, pretty good job actually letting the Immortals' Hardened Shields take a lot. Just lose one of them, but still peeling around and trying to make the most of these units.
That's exactly what I meant though. Like those force fields, I felt they were good. The defensive position of the Protoss units was good, but the Hydras were still doing some serious work there, getting a couple of units for free, sniping the Observer there in the end. But GunGFuBanDa will be able to stabilize. He will have Blink available soon. Storm is finishing up. He's going to have +2 attack, and he's mining gas of that 5th and 6th Assimilator. So even when he's down 30-40 army supply, Nate, Blink Stalkers, Force Fields, and Storm can do magical things against Roach Hydra.
Yeah, he still has a lot of opportunities here for him to try and make something of this. And, you know, given what the odds are for GunGFuBanDa in this position, this is the time to make it happen. This is one of the big chances he's going to have to really make some moves happen.
The Vipers are on their way as well, and even though this is not an army that is necessarily very, you know, vulnerable for abducts, even though if Immortals get abducted, that's never nice as a Protoss, because that always kind of hurts because they're very expensive units. But if a Protoss stays in a very defensive position, Blinding Cloud can actually be a very deadly spell, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Hydra go for Blinding Clouds instead of abducts when he's facing this Blink Stalker Storm army.
Yeah, he's going to be caught up into a choke point.
Everything is so clumped up as well, Nate.
Oh, well, he gets a decent Storm to start off this engagement, but there's the big Blinding Cloud pushing a lot of this army back. He blinks back towards the third base. Does drop another reasonable Storm at the same time. Third one not doing quite so much, but he's also split off some forces into the natural, but there's photon cannons there.
Yeah, the Blinding Cloud's really good. You could see attack move being used over there, but Immortals, they're kind of derpy when they're on the Blinding Cloud, and then they'll just run through the front lines of the battle. Still though, now it seems like Hydra has really split up his army to an insane amount. He's going to lose the fight on the low ground decisively over here, Nate, while only doing a little bit of work in the natural.
Yeah, GunGFuBanDa gets, I'd say, probably close to the better trade that he's going to be able to pick up, especially considering that Blinding Cloud was used, cleans house, all the Zerg eradicated from his natural in that third base, and at the same time, he softened up the hatchery in the northeast side. He doesn't have any pylons out on the map, but as that Spire gets closer and closer to completing, how does GunGFuBanDa make the most of this situation?
I think slowly but steady, just try to let your army grow a little further, because if he runs across the map right now, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of Storms available. He does have 4 High Templars in there, slowly but steady gathering up energy now. It's always risky though, because Roach Hydra on creep is like 100 times more intimidating than off creep. The units just move so much faster. It's harder to land the Storms that you would normally land. It's harder to land the perfect force fields. You can already see Hydra putting his units in a perfect line. He has 20 more Roaches on the way. He shouldn't walk up that ramp though, because that would have gone very wrong for him. Once again, there are a couple of Zealots marching towards that fourth base, but Hydra, as the excellent Zerg that he is, has a couple of Roaches there to, you know, give them a warm welcome.
I do really like this counterplay by Hydra. He's really starting to punish GunGFuBanDa in this position for being so out on the map. He did have a couple of Zealots try to knock down that fourth, but was unable to get that. There's the Time Warp on the ramp. There's the first Blinding Cloud actually completely whiffing, and the control so far from GunGFuBanDa in this engagement pretty solid.
Yeah, but the Roaches, like you mentioned, the counterattacks are excellent. This actually means that the economy is really starting to hurt for GunGFuBanDa. And once again, on creep, this Roach Hydra army is so much stronger. It's moving forward now. There's not a whole lot to buffer for those Immortals and the Archons.
Yeah, with those dropping, that's the meatiest, the most powerful part of this army. The Archons fall, and it's just Stalkers now against Hydralisks. Where's the rest of the Roaches to come up here and actually tank for this army, though?
There are so many Roaches and Hydras on the way that even sometimes it looks like the Protoss is winning, just in a matter of time, you know, 15, 20 additional Roaches show up when you're playing against someone who's as good as Hydra. Hydra is chasing off creep now, and this is definitely the moment where maybe GunGFuBanDa can let things swing into his favor, because, you know, Micro and Blink Stalkers off creep is a lot easier than on creep. It's still a pretty close game. Hydra's up 17 workers. What is very important to mention is that his 2-2 upgrades did finish up right before that final battle started. And from this point on, it's basically just Blink Stalkers. And I mean, we all know what a man can do with Blinkstalkers, so I'm not going to undersell it. But it's not as scary as Blinkstalkers with Storm, Archons, and Immortals.
Yeah, and he does jump in and snipe off that fourth base at last, blinking it now away. Dropped a few Stalkers in order to make it happen, but as he moves away off of creep, he's just trying to dodge this army for as long as possible, but he's losing a lot on the way.
That wasn't for free. That was a great snipe, of course, denying the fourth base of the Zerg in this phase in the game where you know his main base is pretty much mined out and his natural is starting to run dry as well. Sniping the fourth is normally crucial, but GunGFuBanDa is not really in a position where he can afford to lose 4 or 5 Stalkers on his own.
Now, +3 attack is starting up for Hydra. He did start another hatchery in the bottom center position, so he's really starting to spread himself out. And I have to ask, the creep spread hasn't been pushed too far away from the center position. Is GunGFuBanDa on the right track to recovering this game, or?
Yeah, he just needs time, and Hydra is most likely not going to give him time, because Hydra knows, hey, my army is 190 supply. It's probably not going to get a whole lot stronger than this. That is kind of an awkward engagement, because the north side of that army from Hydra arrived way before the reinforcements from the south arrived. In the end, he will be able to force GunGFuBanDa back. There's no signs of getting a fourth base. He's on the right track, Nate. If he survives like 1 or 2 more big waves, then he can do it. But Hydra is not going to give GunGFuBanDa the time.
I mean, he ate a lot of damage from those storms. He's mostly out of blinding clouds. He's going to fight into this arc, but there's one more right on top of the Immortal, denying a lot of firepower from this Protoss army. The Immortal is snapped up, and Hydra continues to press in. More and more Hydralisks on the way behind all of this. Additional weapons are coming in for GunGFuBanDa, but he's down almost 100 supply now, Roddy.
Yeah, this army still doesn't look that big, though. I do think that the German Protoss should be able to stabilize over here once more, but we have to ask ourselves the question, at what cost, Nate, as he's losing quite a few Immortals, quite a few Stalkers, but he will be able to hang in there for now. Contaminate being used. He's like, no Immortals for you as of yet. 162 supply against 85. It's, well, I don't know. It's still very difficult, I think, for the Protoss.
Yeah, I would say dicey to say the least, Kev. As another move out of these Stalkers is coming, but no pylon to reinforce means that this army doesn't get any bigger anytime soon, especially since he lost the Warp Prism as well. And you mentioned the micro trying to kite with Blink off creep. It's useful, but he doesn't actually have enough to kill anything.
Yeah, and during all this, GunGFuBanDa tried to expand towards the fourth base on the 9 o'clock position of this map, but there were just a handful of slow links still waiting there. They picked up the Pro, picked up the Pylon, and actually forced the Nexus to cancel as well. Those storms are big, though, doing a lot of damage to these Hydra lists, but there's just nothing that's actually good against Hydras other than Storm, and Storm is often a great way to soften up the Hydras, but it won't kill them all, and now these Stalkers are forced to take a very unfavorable fight.
Yeah, retreating to the Photon Cannons at the third base, trying to put himself into the best position possible, but with so many reinforcements just constantly streaming across the map, that +3 attack is about to finish up, and he's once again, during the fight, inside the natural killing field.
Yeah, Hydra has done a phenomenal job throughout this series in splitting up his army, not giving Protoss players the fight they normally want to have. You know, Protoss armies are strong if everything is together, if you're able to drop the force fields you're looking for, if Storm can connect with a lot of units. The last thing you want to do is micro Blink Stalkers at 2 sides at once, and GunGFuBanDa knows it. GG is called, and Hydra will come out as the winner of Group A in WCS round of 16.
Moving once more towards securing that seed at the global finals later this year. A key moment in this tournament for Hydra as he continues to establish himself as one of the big contenders as BlizzCon approaches.
Yeah, played an excellent series. Once again, just to finish the thought I was going where towards the end of the series when GunGFuBanDa tapped out. If you have Blink Stalkers, it's a lot easier to have just your entire army at one place and then blink those units back one by one. The worst thing that could happen is if you have like one army here and the other army there, because then your mouse has to be like all over the screen at 2 sides. It's just very, very difficult to manage, and Hydra really capitalized on, you know, that weakness, in quote-unquote weakness, of Blink Stalkers by forcing him to defend on multiple locations over and over again. I do think it was a very fun series, though, and a very dynamic series with a lot of action.
Yeah, GunGFuBanDa showed up and really, I think, did good credit to that idea of being the guy that's so far underrated, that's such an underdog, that you look at him and say, well, you know, he still has another chance after all of this. And he played actually pretty solid games against Hydra. He capitalized on a lot of opportunities where Hydra made slip-ups, but, you know, Hydra being that guy that we expect to see go this far, one of the Titans in this round of 16, it's not surprising to see him move on, but we still have to ask ourselves now, as this group resolves itself tomorrow, how is GunGFuBanDa going to fare against either 4GG or Bunny.
I mean, it's very hard to predict right now, but we saw him earlier today on the B stream against 4GG, and once again, that was not a lucky, gimmicky victory. He deserved to win that series. He was the better player in that series. We also all know that 4GG has extremely strong Terran versus Terran, so there is a good chance that we will see a rematch between 4GG and GunGFuBanDa, and then, well, God knows what is going to happen. I think it's going to be quite wild, and I think it's very open from this point. Obviously, Hydra is very happy that he's done with this group. He's like, well, he expected himself to move on, but it's always easier said than done. And I do think that he had to sweat a little bit, especially on Coda. I think in game number 1, there were multiple moments where it started to look like the Protoss was stabilizing and have an answer to the entire Zerg army. But Hydra, being Hydra, always just forcing you know, small mistakes upon his opponents, and then in the end being able to tilt things in his favor.
Yeah, as he's now moved on to the round of 8, let's hear his thoughts. He's on the main stage with Chobra.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I know you guys all missed him. It's been a long time, but give another round of applause for Hydra, now the first quarterfinalist here in the season finals of WCS Season 2. Now, we got to talk about that first game. The casters mentioned it. It looked like it could be close. And one of the key moments, I think, is when GunGFuBanDa tried to blink in and take out your Broodlords before they finished. Did that give you a little bit of a heart attack? Because watching backstage, I was just on my toes watching this moment. Were you worried at all when this happened?
Yeah, it was really hard to defend because I didn't know much about his style, so I didn't prepare the specific build against him. So I just wanted to safe build with the safety build. So yeah, I think I was a bit behind at early game. That's why the hard to defend that.
All right. You know, that was my follow-up question, actually. Most people, I mean, we don't have many Protoss to begin with this weekend. And as you mentioned, GunGFuBanDa was not a favorite for many people. Did you prepare at all, or were you expecting to play against either him or any Protoss at all this weekend?
Just I didn't prepare about the specific build about the GunGFuBanDa. Just, yeah, as you say, there are just few Protoss, so yeah, I focused on just Terran or Zerg, yeah.
All right, well, plenty of those left here in the season finals of WCS. And earlier, when we spoke to you, you said, you know, I don't think this group is going to be that hard for me, and you've proved it. I mean, he's moving on to the quarterfinals here from Group A. But now that you're in the quarterfinals, are you worried about playing anyone, or because you came here to win, are you not concerned, and are you just going to look for that final prize?
Yeah, I think this tournament is stronger than last WCS because there are some Koreans that very good players. So yeah, this quarterfinal is gonna be very fun than before WCS.
All right, once again, our first quarterfinal, ladies and gentlemen, it's Hydra from Root Gaming, moving on to the round of 8 this weekend in the season finals. Of course, thank you to our sponsors at Gigabyte G1, and let's hear a little bit of a breakdown of the winners match.
Our Season 1 second place finishers continues to dominate here in Season 2. Goes 4-0 in group stages and is looking absolutely dominant. And he is looking at the moment like we could see him in another final. Fantastic performances there in Control.
I mean, that's the storyline for him. Anything short of a top 4, probably a final for him would be a disappointment. And he needs to come out firing, and he did that. He took care of business. Bunny put down hard. We tried to hype it up. I was excited on paper. I thought it was going to be great. Ended up being a pretty one-sided affair. And GunGFuBanDa, maybe a little bit closer game to game, but not really. 2-0, still very strong performance. Very strong performances from the Season 1 finalists. Let's take a look at the bracket to update exactly where we are in Group A. We finished with Group A for today. Hydra moves to the quarterfinals, and we'll take a break tomorrow and join us again on Sunday for the Championship Sunday bracket, where we'll have the 8 players facing off in that single elimination. And then down here, sorry, just reading that, 4GG Bunny will be played out tomorrow as well with the decider of GunGFuBanDa. Massive games coming, but let's go back into that game we just saw and talk about it for a little bit.
Did you have moments throughout that where you thought, oh, actually, GunGFuBanDa can do it? Or were you watching it thinking,
yes,
it's another roll?
There's some really awesome subtleties to that match. I really like that Chober went to that decisive moment where a bunch of Blink Stalkers blinked underneath the Broodlord tech, which is a real critical moment. If you can get them before they get up to a high number, that's great. He had 4 Colossus backing that up. He had Templar for the Vipers. He had everything he needed.
Yep.
But I think the one thing that was missing was he didn't have pylons too terribly close to that situation, so he wasn't warping in. But also, Hydra was really hurting his economy behind that, so he didn't have that much to warp in anyways.
And you agree with that, and anything else to add to that, Chris?
Just in general, it seemed like even in that post-game interview that Hydra played exactly what we were going to say. He felt like he was the better player. He didn't have much information on his opponent. And then he just, you know, played a very normal, safe macro style. He had a lot of great transitions, kept switching up tech. But all in all, really great play from Hydra.
Performances from Hydra, tournament-winning worthy performances?
Yes and no. For this group stage, he had a really hard group, so he made it out. But during the final, he's going to have to bring a little bit more, I think, if he wants to.
His ZVT in particular looked really scary, I feel. I mean, maybe not to discredit Bunny, but maybe Bunny made it look better than it was. But it looked, especially game 1, it was like, oh, God. What do you do? I mean, just get out. Just get out of here.
GunGFuBanDa has one more opportunity, Jeff, to advance in second place. But that leaves us with a very interesting low bracket game tomorrow in 4GG versus Bunny, a game of elimination, a game to survive in here for very two different reasons. If you look at the standings, both players just outside the top 16, very close mid-20 rank. One of them will be eliminated. One of them really hurts their run for the global finals, Chris.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because Bunny, obviously being the top 400 WCS points, and now all of a sudden we have this new contender, GunGfu, that could all of a sudden be that new foreign hope. I mean, with so many points and, you know, he's just getting into Premier now, he all of a sudden has a chance that if he does a really deep run here, he can already like catapult himself to the lead of that standings, especially because Bunny could get eliminated, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Just tomorrow.
Going to be big games tomorrow. We are done for Group A, but we're continuing through the World Championship Series because we have Group B starting in moments. And the first match is going to be with the reigning champion taking on the European Protoss Hearthstone. Which way is it going to go? We'll find out after the break.